It's a wild weekend and a fascinating weekend to be a Star Wars fan. They did announce three new Star Wars movies. I made a mistake in my first video because I wasn't there. I wasn't at Celebration and I had misread what was said. But basically, there are three upcoming Star Wars movies, right? One of them is going to take place 15 years after Rise of Skywalker. The other two are in different parts of the timeline. For example, one is a Mandalorian, Dave Filoni sort of this like crossover event that's going to tie up a bunch of loose ends, probably with Ahsoka and other characters like that are like in between 6 and 7. And then there's one takes place all the way back before Episode 1, before the High Republic and the Old Republic. It's about the first Jedi to ever discover the Force. That's being directed by James Mangold. So there's my correction. Did do a video with Reel to Reel yesterday, had some bad audio on it, so I'm sorry about that. It's still listenable. It's just kind of loud. You gotta turn me down a little bit. Today, I want to discuss the Ahsoka trailer, and I want to discuss the well, first of all, before we get to the Ahsoka trailer, all right, they did announce a second season of Tales of the Jedi. I like Tales from the Jedi. I did do a review on it. The Count Dooku stuff was probably my favorite stuff on there. There was some Ahsoka stuff here and there that really felt more like deleted scenes from like Clone Wars and Rebels, and it really gave off that vibe that I don't think was really necessary. The Dooku stuff, while also perhaps not being necessary, was definitely more interesting. I've always read about and heard about how Dooku joined the dark side, how he actually was seduced by Lord Sidious, and for them to tell that story, it was good, it was fun. And if you haven't checked out Tales from the Jedi on Disney Plus, it is on there. So it's only a few minutes, they're shorts. You'll be done with it you could do it in like less than half an hour, I think, something like that. So season 2 is announced. I hope they keep it short. 6, 8 episodes. Don't go too far with it. I'd be fine with it. I want to talk about the Ahsoka trailer. So this Ahsoka trailer was probably the most action-packed trailer we've seen for a new TV show in quite some time. I would say that this trailer was so impactful. To me, it was actually better than the trailer that we saw for Obi-Wan and even for Mandalorian Season 3. I think a lot of times what they try to do is they try to hide stuff. I think a lot of times what they try to do is they try to hide what's going to happen and the big surprises. And I feel like in this situation, I feel like they were pretty wise, because one of the things they did hide, although they really didn't, is that Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to be the lead villain of Ahsoka. This has been rumored for years now, since season 2 of The Mandalorian. And Ahsoka, of course, being once again reprised by Rosario Dawson. Grand Admiral Thrawn is a mythical Star Wars villain, going all the way back to the Timothy Zahn trilogy of books that introduced Thrawn. He was later canonized in Star Wars Rebels when Disney bought the property, and Dave Filoni, of course, was overseeing all of that. Now we have the Ahsoka show, which once again is going to have Dave Filoni's fingerprints all over it, because Ahsoka's like his love child. Not literally, but creatively, he loves Ahsoka. And Grand Admiral Thrawn, while not his invention, I'm sure he and Timothy Zahn have had extensive discussions about it, and I'm sure Zahn is on board on the creative team. So that's being set up, and that's going to pick up presumably after Ahsoka visits Luke in the Book of Boba Fett episode she was in, which once again is kind of building towards this. Now, what they did not hide in the trailer was, and again, they showed Thrawn from like the rear. You couldn't see his face, being once again portrayed by Lars Mikkelsen, who played him in he voiced him in the TV shows. But what they didn't hide is that there's a lot of new lightsaber wielding, force wielding enemies for Ahsoka to defeat. Now, 2 of these were pretty interesting. From what I understand from reading around the internet, one of these characters is a Jedi who is very old, who survived Order 66 all these years. Remember, this Ahsoka show is taking place after Return of the Jedi, but before the sequel trilogy. So it's between 6 and 7. And so he's going to be old. The guy with the beard, And apparently he survived and at some point turned to the dark side. Now, it's not specified from what I was reading whether he turned to the dark side because of Palpatine's influence from the shadows, either during the original trilogy or after when he was really in the shadows, or if it was Snoke doing it. I would assume it wasn't Snoke, although I could see them sort of dropping little hints here and there. I don't believe, and I have to double check this, I don't believe the Supreme Leader Snoke character clone had been devised yet as of the time of the Ahsoka story. Now, again, I could be wrong. They haven't given everything away yet. Right now, the mission of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau with these episodes, with these shows, is to tell us the story of the Mandalorian and kind of some of the events that took place during the post Jedi, era, and what would eventually lead into being, the sequel trilogy. And that's, some folks don't like that, but like I said in my previous video, a lot of guys on the internet make up stories about it being erased and the world between worlds, and it was all bullshit. I mean, what more evidence do you need now? Like, it's not even a secret now. But the Ahsoka thing looked decent. I mean, I think that what they're trying to do is kind of hammer home that we are going to see some Jedi clashes. We are going to see some Jedi action, because the other Star Wars shows, we haven't seen much. We've seen Luke tear down some droids in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. We've seen Ahsoka in battle in not only, and I'm talking about the live action Ahsoka. You can talk about the Darth Maul thing all you want, but we really saw her, in combat in the Mandalorian Season 2, but not against another saber user. So that could be really interesting. There's all kinds of speculation around the internet that we might see the introduction of Mara Jade. Mara Jade, for those who don't know who Mara Jade is, in the old EU, Mara Jade was a warrior who wound up marrying Luke Skywalker and having his children. Now, there's been a lot of talk about what they could do, where they could go. Can they actually canonize Mara Jade? Can they take aspects of the Thrawn trilogy and actually make them work within the time period between episodes 6 and 7? Josh from Den of Nerds and I had a discussion a while ago about this, where we talked about the possibility of them sort of not canonizing, but loosely adapting a lot of the ideas from the Zahn books into this sort of between 6 and 7 time period, which, to be honest, is way more interesting than what actually wound up happening in the sequel trilogy. Way more. And it's unfortunate because no matter what they do, I feel like the sequel trilogy is going to be a black eye on Star Wars forever at this point. They can try to get out of it. They can try to tell other stories and, try to justify its existence, but it's going to be a black eye. I feel like, though, if they do tell the story of Mara Jade, if Mara Jade does marry Luke and is at some point killed, if the reason as to why Luke is so upset, but he hid it from Rey, if the reason as to why Luke is so grouchy is not just because of what Ben Solo did and betrayed, the Republic, the New Republic, and joined up with Snoke, if it's really also because he lost his wife, that, to me, at the very least, is going to add some credence to why he's such a grouch in Last Jedi. And that's something, because I was one of the first guys to come on here and trash that movie. When everybody else was praising it when it first came out, I felt like I was the weird one, because I talked about its problems, and then the Phantom Menace came around, and so is history. I guess I wasn't the only one. I was happy to not be alone. But if they do tell us that Mara Jade is... If they happen to tell this story where Mara Jade does join up with Luke, they get married, then something happens to her because of this civil war, the First Order or whatever, the Imperial Remnant, at least then we understand more of Luke's pain, because Luke was in pain in Empire Strikes Back because he was worried about losing Han and Leia and Chewie and everybody else, and so he did that reckless decision to go face off with Darth Vader in that movie. And so Luke's always had a really strong ties to the ones he cares about. So if Mara Jade does end up marrying Luke and getting killed, and this is for later, I'm not saying it's going to happen in the Ahsoka show, they could just introduce her there, then it's going to be real interesting to see where things go. The other big reveal behind this trailer is that we got our first look at the live action Rebels. I was so shocked because I was not expecting that. Like, I didn't think we were actually going to see the characters from Star Wars Rebels. So if you invested in Star Wars Rebels, if you're somebody who watched the show when it first aired, they're all here. Like, we see Sabine. She's there. We've talked a lot about Sabine. We see, I mean, they show like Mon Mothma and other people there, but we see Chopper, Hera, characters that we haven't even seen since Rebels ended. And I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. Is this really going to be what we had heard about? Remember, the rumor is that they were trying to find, the rumor is that they're trying to find Ezra Bridger and, you know, recover him because he's been missing. And it's funny because in the trailer they actually say, like, we've heard rumors of the return of the heir to the empire, which is, you know, Timothy Zahn's book. But I couldn't even believe that they were all there. I couldn't even, like, at first I didn't even see them till I had to rewind it because I thought I was like losing it. So we're going to see them live action for the first time. Good to know that they didn't all die because they could have easily done that. But that's going to be a rewarding moment for a lot of the people who had followed Rebels, for better or for worse, when it was on. There's a ton of Easter eggs in this trailer, but I gotta say, man, I have more trust in Dave Filoni than just about anybody, to a fault. Yes, he does kind of, in a way, overly push Ahsoka as a character, but I do still trust him way more than I do somebody like Abrams or Kennedy or Rian Johnson or any of these people. I trust him. If he could have done the sequel trilogy, it would have been a vastly different situation than what we got. So that's exciting. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the Ahsoka trailer. Star Wars Celebration London was this weekend. It's over. They definitely dropped some announcements, and I think by 2025 is when we're going to get the first trailer to the upcoming new movies that they got announced. But in the meantime, Ahsoka is coming this August, so we'll get some answers soon. Take care. See you in the next video, and subscribe if you're new. I talk about nerd stuff here, World of Geekdom. You know how we roll.